Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. Some people scare the world by shouting. Sigma females do it by breathing. Most people don't realize this, but according to behavioral research, human beings instinctively fear what they can't read. And Sigma females? They are the walking definition of unreadable. Not because they're trying to be mysterious, but because their natural way of moving through the world disrupts every social expectation people secretly rely on. They don't follow the script. They don't play the performance. And worst of all, they don't react the way anyone predicts. That alone is enough to send a mild shiver down anyone's spine. Imagine someone who can sit through chaos without blinking, detect dishonesty without effort, and dismantle manipulative behavior without saying a single word. Now imagine that person calmly drinking her water, not realizing she just terrified 3 people at a table who can't figure out why she's so unaffected. It's not intentional. It's not dramatic. It's not even loud. It's the quiet precision of a Sigma female that unnerves people. The way she sees everything, misses nothing, and carries herself like someone who doesn't need permission to exist. And the funniest part? Most Sigma females have no idea they're doing any of this. They think they're just minding their business. Meanwhile, half the room is internally panicking, trying to decode a woman who operates like a human plot twist. So today we're diving into 12 things Sigma females unknowingly do that send total bone-deep horror through people. Not because she's scary, but because she dismantles the social comfort zones everyone else depends on. Number 1, they can sit in uncomfortable truths without trying to fix them. Sigma females have a terrifying kind of patience when it comes to truth. They don't rush to soften it, sugarcoat it, or make it easier for anyone to swallow. Most people are programmed to deflect, distract, or mediate when faced with something uncomfortable, but a Sigma female will simply let it exist in the room. She allows reality to settle like heavy dust, letting everyone in it feel the full weight of what's true, unfiltered and unapologetic. That alone can be deeply unsettling, because it exposes the layers of denial and pretense that most people cling to for comfort. She doesn't have to raise her voice, argue, or force the point. Her mere acceptance of the unvarnished truth communicates something most people find impossible to confront. Life is what it is, and she isn't responsible for pretending otherwise. People around her start to squirm without understanding why. Their mental defenses feel pointless because she's not engaging in the usual social contortions that disguise reality. She sits calmly, almost unnervingly, while others struggle internally with truths they've been avoiding. This doesn't mean she's cruel or enjoys discomfort. It's simply her nature to acknowledge what is rather than what could be or should be. And it terrifies people because it forces introspection in the quietest way possible. If someone has been lying to themselves, overcompensating with excuses, or projecting illusions to feel safe, her presence highlights those cracks without her having to say a word. She holds space for the unvarnished, the raw, and the unaltered, and in doing so, she becomes a mirror that no one wants to look into, but can't ignore. Her ability to sit with uncomfortable truths also demonstrates strength. Most people react to harsh realities with emotion or impulsive solutions, but she operates outside that cycle. She is unaffected by panic, drama, or hysteria. That calm endurance, her unshakable observation of what is, not what people wish it was, creates a subtle horror in those around her. They feel exposed, powerless, and entirely unprepared to handle someone who can accept reality so fully without the urge to manipulate it or themselves. It's quiet, it's relentless, and it is uniquely Sigma. Number 2, they treat compliments like data, not validation. Sigma females have a completely different relationship with compliments than most people do. When someone praises them, it doesn't trigger a blush, a smile, or a need for approval. Instead, it goes in like information, a piece of data, to be logged and processed, not an emotional boost to be absorbed. This is terrifying for people who are used to measuring their influence or charm based on the reactions they receive. When a Sigma female doesn't respond with the expected gratitude or flattery, it creates a quiet panic. People feel unseen, powerless, and unsure if they've done something right or completely wrong. She doesn't need to argue or debate the compliment. She simply registers it. A compliment doesn't elevate her status or earn her loyalty. It doesn't sway her decisions or shift her perception of the person offering it. That kind of indifference is disarming because most social interactions revolve around this subtle exchange of emotional currency. When someone tries to win her favor through words, they quickly realize that her internal scale isn't influenced by their validation. This exposes an unsettling truth. Her sense of worth is entirely self-contained, leaving manipulators and flatterers utterly ineffective. Her ability to process praise as neutral information also forces people to confront their own motives. It's uncomfortable to realize that words meant to charm or impress have no effect. A Sigma female's mind quietly files it away, observing the intent behind the words without becoming impressed, flattered, or indebted. This level of detachment creates a sense of vulnerability in others because it reveals the futility of trying to control her perception through conventional means. What makes it even more intense is that it isn't arrogance. She isn't rejecting people out of pride. She simply operates on a higher emotional bandwidth, one that doesn't require validation from anyone else. Her neutrality in response to compliments is a mirror that reflects the dependency, insecurity, and neediness of those who offer them. It unsettles people deeply because it silently shatters the invisible social contracts they assume exist, leaving them exposed and scrambling to find footing in an interaction that has suddenly become unpredictable. Number 3. They don't match people's energy. They replace it with their own Sigma. Females have a way of interacting that completely rewrites the energy in a room. Unlike most people who instinctively mirror moods, gestures, and tones to fit in or gain approval, a Sigma female doesn't bend to someone else's emotional frequency. She operates on her own wavelength, setting her own tempo, and it feels like she's silently rewriting the rules of interaction without even trying. This ability unnerves people because it's unpredictable. They expect to influence her mood or behavior, and when they can't, it creates a subtle, growing panic. She doesn't need to escalate drama or match excitement to draw attention. Instead, her presence alone establishes a new standard of energy. If someone is frantic, she slows the rhythm. If someone is dull, she injects a quiet intensity. It isn't manipulation or performance. It's a natural alignment to her own internal compass. People instinctively try to recalibrate themselves to her level, but they never quite catch up. The result is a strange combination of awe and fear, because she is unshakable, unaffected, and entirely autonomous. What makes it more terrifying is that it exposes the artificiality in others. Anyone who relies on emotional performance to control outcomes, impress, or intimidate immediately realizes it has no effect. Their efforts to sway her energy are invisible, ineffective, and utterly futile. Sigma females, through this subtle dominance of emotional space, make people confront how much of their own energy is performative. It's quiet, it's relentless, and it has a way of highlighting vulnerability in those who thought they were in control. This isn't about being dramatic or forceful. It's about an unspoken authority over the flow of interaction. Her energy isn't loud, but it's undeniable. She shifts atmospheres without announcing it, replacing tension, anxiety, or chaos with her own measured, controlled frequency. People around her are left unsettled, caught between trying to match her and realizing they can't, and that inability sparks a deep, instinctive horror. They understand, without being told, that her power isn't external or performative. It's inherent, silent, and inescapable. Number 4. They unintentionally expose people's weaknesses by being unaffected. Sigma females have a way of interacting that strips away pretenses without ever meaning to. When someone tries to impress, intimidate, or manipulate, she doesn't react the way they expect. Her calm, unaffected demeanor highlights the fragility, insecurity, or desperation of others without her having to say a single word. People instinctively measure their influence through reactions, smiles, flinches, stammers, nods, but with a Sigma female, those indicators often vanish. The absence of response becomes more powerful than any confrontation, and it terrifies people because it reveals how reliant they are on validation and control. This isn't calculated. She doesn't plan to embarrass or unmask anyone. It's a natural byproduct of her self-sufficiency. Her neutrality acts like a spotlight on weaknesses. Someone puffing themselves up, trying to dominate a conversation, or masking insecurity, suddenly realizes that none of it matters to her. The confidence they projected is exposed as hollow, the manipulation they hoped would work is useless, and their subtle attempts to assert authority collapse silently. It's a horror most people don't anticipate because they expect at least a minimal response: agreement, amusement, annoyance, something to confirm that their efforts have meaning. With her, there's nothing. She also exposes contradictions. People lie to themselves and others constantly, presenting a version of themselves they want others to see. When she interacts with them without being affected, those lies are thrown into sharp relief. A person's bravado looks shallow, their charm appears forced, and their supposed influence evaporates. She becomes a mirror, reflecting not what they want to be seen but what is undeniable: their vulnerability, dependence, and internal chaos. Her ability to remain untouched makes her presence almost surgical. People leave interactions unsettled, questioning their own behavior, choices, and even self-worth, all without her saying a word. The fact that she doesn't engage with weakness actively makes it worse. It's passive, silent, and inescapable. That unintentional revelation of truth, combined with her indifference, is what makes Sigma females profoundly unnerving to anyone accustomed to social manipulation, flattery, or dominance. Number 5. They can exit people's lives without creating emotional mess. Sigma females have a remarkable ability to remove themselves from situations or relationships without drama, guilt, or explanation, and it unnerves people because it defies every social expectation. Most people believe that leaving a connection requires negotiation, apologies, or justification, but with a Sigma female, none of that is necessary. She doesn't linger, manipulate emotions, or leave loose threads to be tied. Her departures are clean, absolute, and utterly final, leaving those left behind scrambling to understand what happened. That absence of emotional chaos is more terrifying than confrontation because it exposes how dependent others are on attention, approval, and validation. Her exits aren't motivated by cruelty or pettiness. They are a natural result of her self-containment and clarity of priorities. When she decides that a person, situation, or environment no longer aligns with her values or growth, she moves on without hesitation. There is no spectacle, no revenge, and no lingering attachment. People are left in a void, forced to face the reality that her presence was never conditional upon their approval, manipulation, or affection. That realization can spark deep discomfort because it highlights the illusions of control and influence that most people take for granted in relationships. What makes it even more unsettling is that she leaves no trace of lingering dependence. She doesn't keep tabs, create emotional debt, or maintain influence from a distance. Her absence is total, leaving others to confront not only the void she leaves, but also their own reliance on her presence. It's a rare and terrifying form of autonomy that most people cannot comprehend or replicate. The power of her exits lies in their simplicity and finality. People are used to emotional noise, the arguments, guilt trips, or attempts at reconciliation that accompany most departures. Sigma females skip all of that. Their ability to disengage cleanly exposes the fragility, insecurity, and dependency of those left behind. It creates a quiet, lingering horror because it forces people to confront the truth. She is not bound by their expectations, and her absence cannot be negotiated, fixed, or undone. Number 6. They make people confront their own inconsistency. Sigma females have a way of interacting that forces people to face the truth about themselves, often without saying a word. They remember what was said, what was promised, and the subtle contradictions that slip through conversations. Most people operate under the assumption that small inconsistencies will go unnoticed, that memory is imperfect and social interactions are fleeting. A Sigma female doesn't allow that illusion. Her quiet awareness exposes every mismatch between what someone claims and what they actually do, leaving them disoriented and deeply unsettled. This isn't about keeping score or holding grudges, it's simply how she processes the world. She notices patterns, remembers details, and observes behavior without the need for drama or confrontation. The effect on others is profound. People quickly realize that their attempts to exaggerate, manipulate, or simply gloss over inconvenient truths are futile. The inconsistencies they relied on to navigate social situations, to maintain appearances, or to protect themselves are suddenly glaringly obvious. The realization hits without warning. Someone has been paying attention, and it isn't personal, but it is inescapable. Her presence turns casual conversation into a subtle audit of behavior. Every exaggeration, every contradiction, every minor lie or self-deception becomes visible. People start second-guessing themselves, unsure of how much she knows, what she remembers, or how much she understands about their motives. This exposure is quietly terrifying because it undermines control. Most people rely on selective memory, ambiguity, and social oblivion to protect their image. A Sigma female renders these protective strategies ineffective simply by being meticulous, calm, and observant. What makes it even more unsettling is that she doesn't confront directly. She doesn't announce what she knows or demand explanations. She simply exists as a mirror of truth, holding space for people to reconcile their inconsistencies with the reality she perceives. That quiet, unwavering attention forces introspection, often triggering guilt, anxiety, or discomfort. Her ability to make people face themselves, to confront the discrepancies between who they say they are and who they actually are, is one of the most unnerving, unintentional powers a Sigma female wields. It's subtle, it's relentless, and it leaves a lasting impact long after she's gone. Number 7. They make independence look too easy. Sigma females possess an independence that terrifies people because it is effortless, natural, and unapologetic. They don't announce it, flaunt it, or use it as a weapon. They simply exist fully in their own self-sufficiency, moving through life without needing permission, validation, or reliance on anyone else. For people who are constantly seeking approval or measuring their worth through others, this effortless independence is profoundly unsettling. It exposes the uncomfortable truth that their own dependence, neediness, or social climbing is not a requirement for everyone, and that realization hits harder than any confrontation. This kind of independence is quiet, yet magnetic. She doesn't have to assert dominance, control situations, or manipulate outcomes. She thrives regardless of circumstances, and her life continues moving forward with a sense of calm inevitability. Observers can't help but notice it, and for those who rely on influence, manipulation, or the illusion of necessity, it's a revelation they are ill-equipped to handle. They see a woman who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't compromise her principles for attention or favor. And that is terrifying because it highlights how much of their own social energy is spent chasing approval or relevance, something she doesn't need to do. Her independence also forces people to reflect on their own insecurities and limitations. Every interaction subtly demonstrates that she is unshakable and whole on her own. People can't control her decisions, they can't sway her emotions, and they can't dictate her path. That lack of access to influence produces a quiet, creeping horror. They realize that their usual levers of persuasion, charm, pressure, flattery, intimidation, are completely ineffective. What makes it even more disconcerting is that she doesn't intend to intimidate. She doesn't plan to inspire envy or fear. Her independence is a natural state, and that makes it impossible to negotiate with, argue against, or diminish. The ease with which she moves through life alone, thriving and composed, makes others question their own choices, their reliance on social structures, and their need for validation. It is in that unintentional revelation, the effortless mastery of her own autonomy, that Sigma females instill a subtle but profound terror in anyone who underestimates what independence truly looks like. Number 8. They don't apologize for disinterest. Sigma females have a way of being completely themselves that unnerves people because it refuses to conform to social expectations. When they are disinterested, it isn't a temporary mood or a fleeting distraction. It's a neutral, unshakable state. They don't fake engagement, smile to appease, or pretend to care about something just because someone expects it. Most people are wired to take disinterest personally, to try harder, to chase approval, or to interpret it as rejection that can be fixed. A Sigma female doesn't offer that opportunity, and the effect is quietly terrifying. Her lack of apology for being disinterested exposes the performative nature of social interactions. People are used to the idea that attention, interest, or emotional investment can be negotiated, earned, or coerced. With a Sigma female, none of that works. She isn't cold to punish or to manipulate. She simply does not expend energy on things that do not matter to her. That refusal to validate someone else's importance in her world forces people to confront how much of their social energy is wasted trying to impress, persuade, or insert themselves into someone else's life. This indifference is precise, not careless. Every glance, pause, or absence of reaction communicates a subtle message. She is neither impressed nor concerned. It unsettles people because it denies them the usual feedback they rely on to navigate relationships. The more someone tries to provoke a reaction, the more obvious it becomes that her focus is entirely her own, and their attempts are irrelevant. Her disinterest also reveals insecurity in others. People expect interest to be given as a form of social contract, and when it is withheld without drama or justification, it exposes dependency, neediness, and the illusion of control. They realize that attention is not owed, influence is not guaranteed, and approval cannot be demanded. Sigma females don't just ignore, they exist fully in their own world, unaffected, and that unapologetic autonomy forces people to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. Their disinterest is a mirror that shows dependency, desperation, and vulnerability, and the realization of that reflection is more unnerving than any argument or conflict could ever be. Number 9. They switch from warm to ice cold without warning, but with a reason. Sigma females have a way of regulating their emotional presence that terrifies people because it is precise, controlled, and unpredictable to the untrained eye. Their warmth isn't a constant state. It's a carefully measured response to respect, honesty, and alignment with their values. The moment those lines are crossed, however subtly, their demeanor shifts instantly, and people feel it like a cold wind hitting exposed skin. It isn't dramatized or loud, but it is absolute, and the sudden withdrawal of connection leaves others scrambling to understand what just happened. This shift is not random moodiness. It is a natural consequence of her internal code. When someone betrays trust, disrespects boundaries, or displays insincerity, she doesn't call attention to it or engage in confrontation unless necessary. Instead, she simply withdraws emotionally. That withdrawal is more unsettling than anger because it forces people to face the emptiness of their own actions without an easy way to repair the damage. They sense the invisible line they crossed, and they feel powerless to regain the warmth that was freely given before. The terrifying part for most people is that they often don't see it coming. Sigma females don't telegraph their shifts with warning signs or dramatic cues. They are fully present and warm one moment and detached the next, leaving observers confused, anxious, and unsure how to navigate the sudden void. That unpredictability creates an undercurrent of tension, a silent pressure that forces others to reconsider their behavior and the authenticity of their intentions. What makes it even more striking is that her emotional shifts are grounded in reason and integrity, not whim. They are a reflection of her self-respect and uncompromising standards. People around her cannot manipulate or bargain for favor through charm or guilt because her reactions are not driven by ego or pride. They are driven by principle. Experiencing that abrupt transition from warmth to cold leaves a lasting impression because it demonstrates that her emotional energy is entirely her own, and any misstep on someone else's part cannot be disguised, negotiated, or undone. The subtle horror of that realization lingers long after the interaction ends. Number 10. They remember insignificant details. Others lied about Sigma females have an extraordinary memory for the small, seemingly insignificant things that most people believe go unnoticed. A casual exaggeration, a half-truth, a tiny slip in conversation. She stores it all without fuss or drama. Most people operate under the assumption that minor lies, white lies, or casual misstatements are harmless, that no one is truly paying attention to these tiny details. Sigma females quietly shatter that illusion. They remember, and their awareness lingers beneath the surface, creating a subtle but powerful tension that most people cannot identify until it's too late. It's not malicious. She doesn't keep score to punish or embarrass. Her mind simply catalogues reality accurately, and that accuracy exposes people without her ever needing to call it out. The effect is terrifying because it undermines the sense of control that people rely on in social interactions. Anyone who attempts to manipulate, exaggerate, or distort facts for convenience quickly realizes that a Sigma female is not a passive participant. She is a silent observer who sees beyond the surface and remembers what is convenient for her to forget. This ability also disrupts the illusions people maintain about themselves and others. Someone may lie to seem competent, generous, or likable, but her recollection of small inconsistencies quietly unmasks those facades. She doesn't confront or challenge overtly, but her presence makes people acutely aware that their stories, carefully constructed or not, are transparent. That subtle exposure produces a quiet, creeping horror, the realization that she knows more than she lets on, and that their attempts at deception are meaningless. What amplifies this effect is the lack of dramatization. She doesn't lecture, accuse, or flaunt her knowledge. Her memory functions as a background instrument, one that continuously plays a track of truth that others cannot stop hearing. It creates unease, second-guessing, and anxiety because people sense the weight of the unnoticed details they thought were irrelevant. Her ability to retain and observe these minor truths without ever seeming to makes her presence quietly overwhelming, and it forces anyone interacting with her to confront how transparent they really are. Number 11. They can make someone feel completely alone in a room. Full of people, Sigma females possess an uncanny ability to create a sense of isolation without saying a word. Their presence alone can make someone feel utterly exposed and emotionally inaccessible, even in a crowded room. It's not overt hostility or aggression. It's a quiet, almost imperceptible force that draws attention away from others and centers it on her terms. People around her suddenly sense that their usual social tactics, humor, charm, flattery, or dominance, are ineffective. They feel invisible, not because she wants them gone, but because she exists on a different wavelength, untouched by the pressures and expectations of the crowd. Her ability to induce this sensation comes from total self-containment. She doesn't look to people for validation, approval, or interaction, which leaves those who rely on influence or attention instinctively scrambling. Someone trying to engage with her realizes that no matter what they say or do, her focus is not theirs to capture. That lack of access is a subtle form of psychological horror, because humans are wired to seek connection and recognition. When that connection is denied by someone who doesn't even acknowledge the denial, it becomes disorienting and unsettling. This isolation is amplified by her neutrality. She doesn't direct judgment or criticism toward anyone. She simply exists fully in herself. That makes people confront the uncomfortable truth that they cannot force attention or elicit interest from someone so self-contained. Their usual methods of social leverage vanish, and they are left exposed, vulnerable, and scrambling for footing in a situation they can't control. Her presence forces introspection. People start noticing their own insecurities, dependency on social approval, and the performative aspects of their behavior. They feel the weight of their own inadequacy reflected silently in her composure. That quiet, unintentional power is profoundly unnerving because it demonstrates a mastery over personal space, emotional energy, and social influence that most people cannot comprehend or counter. To be in the proximity of a Sigma female is to confront one's own neediness and dependency. And that revelation, stark, immediate, and unavoidable, is what makes her uniquely terrifying. Number 12. They sense power imbalances instantly and correct them quietly. Sigma females have a subtle, almost instinctual ability to perceive power dynamics the moment they enter a room. They can tell who is trying to dominate, who is seeking approval, and who is manipulating the situation. Not through gossip or observation alone, but through a kind of acute social intuition. Once they detect these imbalances, they don't confront them with noise or aggression. Instead, they correct them quietly, with precision, shifting the energy and subtly realigning the hierarchy without anyone realizing it. This ability terrifies people because it dismantles their strategies before they even notice what's happening. Her corrections are never overt. She doesn't announce dominance or assert authority aggressively. A change in posture, a shift in tone, or the simple act of occupying space with unshakable confidence is enough to recalibrate the room. People who thought they controlled the interaction suddenly feel off balance. Their attempts at intimidation or manipulation falter, leaving them confused and uncertain. The power they assumed was theirs vanishes quietly, replaced by a presence they can't influence, predict, or undermine. What makes it even more unsettling is that she doesn't need validation for these actions. She isn't asserting control for ego or recognition. She simply moves through the world on her own terms. That self-sufficiency creates a ripple effect that exposes the fragility of others' constructed authority. People begin to question their own ability to manage situations, their influence over others, and their assumptions about dominance. It's subtle, invisible, and quietly devastating because they cannot point to what she did or how she did it. This unintentional disruption of social hierarchies is a hallmark of Sigma females. By correcting power imbalances with quiet precision, she asserts her independence and neutrality simultaneously. People leave interactions feeling disoriented, insecure, and exposed, unable to identify exactly what shifted or why they suddenly feel powerless. Her mere presence, coupled with this instinctive recalibration of dynamics, instills a deep, unnerving awareness in others. Influence can be lost in silence, and authority is never guaranteed when a Sigma female is in the room. Sigma females operate on a level that most people can't fully grasp. Their power isn't loud, visible, or performative. It's subtle, precise, and unshakably rooted in self-sufficiency. From the way they sit with uncomfortable truths to the effortless independence that leaves others scrambling for relevance, they unsettle without trying. Every glance, silence, or boundary communicates volumes. They reveal weaknesses, expose inconsistencies, and quietly dismantle illusions while never raising their voice or demanding attention. The horror they inspire isn't born of malice. It stems from an uncomfortable truth that most people avoid confronting, that someone can exist entirely on their own terms, unbound by expectation, unshaken by manipulation, and unbothered by approval. Being around a Sigma female is an experience that lingers. People feel it in the subtle shifts of energy, in the invisible recalibration of social dynamics, and in the realization that their usual tools of influence, persuasion, or charm are ineffective. She forces introspection without confrontation, leaving everyone around her to wrestle with their own insecurities, dependence, and illusions. That quiet, relentless presence is not just intimidating. It is transformative, terrifying, and unforgettable. The reality is simple. Sigma females don't need to prove themselves. They don't need to control, dominate, or dramatize. Their existence alone challenges norms, exposes truths, and reveals vulnerabilities in ways that no argument, lecture, or confrontation ever could. Understanding their power is less about fear and more about respect for someone whose self-mastery and emotional intelligence operate on a plane most people can barely reach. If you found this insight into the world of Sigma females as fascinating and revealing as we intended, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more content that dives deep into the psychology and secrets of extraordinary personalities. Like this video if it opened your eyes, comment below to share your thoughts or experiences, and don't forget to share it with others who need to understand the subtle, unstoppable influence of Sigma females. Stay tuned, because the world of human behavior is far more intense and intriguing than most people ever realize.